Hi, Lee here. So I've finally done most of the preliminary sanding. Obviously the body's now nice and smooth. I've taken the sharp edges off the body. I've also cut the recess for the electronics, but I'll give you a closer look at that in a second. And of course I've now finished the headstock. I've drilled the 14mm holes for the tuners. So we've got to that time where I can finally glue the body wings onto the neck. So this video will be gluing that together, and then we'll go on for the final sand before I get ready to put some oil on it. I'm probably going to oil it with Danish oil. But let's get this glued together and I'll show you what I've done. So if we take a closer look at the bottom of the guitar, as you can see, I've now drilled out the cavity for the electronics. Usually you could just screw a wood or a plastic cover on there, but I actually got some of my old oak that I used for my previous Telecaster build, and I've cut that out to shape, and I've actually bought some magnets. So these magnets are, the bathroom mirrors have that little magnet that clicks the mirror door to it. I actually bought a couple of those in a hardware store, and I took the magnets out and put them in the edges, and then I carved out a cover for it, and so now it's magnetic, so I'm really pleased with that. I've also rounded it off. I couldn't make this too thin though because it'd be too flimsy, so it's actually like a bulge. So this is level around the edges, but it's a bulge in the middle just to keep the strength of this part. So really pleased with that. That's a nice idea. I've already put electrical shielding in there and on here as well, but we'll worry about that later. So what I'll do now is I'll get prepped and we'll glue these two wings onto the body. Excellent, so it's all glued together now. It finally resembles a guitar. Before I start the final sanding and finishing, I need to route out the pickup holes. So I'm going to measure that up, and then I'll get the router out and route those. I've already drawn the bridge position for the 24-inch scale length, but I'm actually just going to put some indents in there, so when I do the final sanding I don't lose my markings, because this is already correct. So let's crack on with getting the pickup slots routed out. So all I've done is I looked online and just measured up from the 12th fret suitable pickup distances based upon different styles of guitar. So I think the one I used was from just a jazz bass. If you measure it, these lines are roughly the same position as the jazz bass pickups. So I thought that's good enough for me. I've got the pickups here, so I just lined everything up, drew around it. So all that's left to do now is just get the router on here and cut the hole out. It should be about 2.5 centimeters deep. So let's get cracking. So as you can see, I've set up a jig with a straight edge on the edge of my workbench. So now I know that when I do the lines, it's going to be perfectly straight, because this is going to be really visible, so I want this to be as perfect as I can make it. So there we have it. Pretty much all of the major cutting is done now. So the next step is just lots and lots of sanding to try and get all of this smooth, get the grain to come up before I oil it. I'm actually going to use Danish oil to oil it with. So that's really good. The only last cut that I need to make on here is just for the plug to go in there. So the jack socket. But that's all. Everything else is now done. Let's get all the sanding done, and then we'll start putting the electronics in. So there we have it.
It's all sanded down now and smoothed over. It's looking really good. I'm already seeing the grain come out. So with the sanding, I started off with a rough sandpaper, around 120 or something. Then I went to a 400, then a 600, and then I had just a sponge pad, 1000 grit sandpaper, just to go over it and make it nice and smooth. So now that's done, I'm going to put some Danish oil on it. In fact, before I do that, I think I better work out and position where the knobs are going to go. So my next job is going to measure up and drill the knobs into the body there. But just check it out. So I've made some measurements where I want the electronics to go and marked inside here. But the next job is I need to put the jack socket in. So I need to drill a hole into the end of the guitar. So again, I've measured up already. This should be the right position. So let's get drilling. Excellent. So I've drilled all the holes out now. It's all looking good. Finally now I'm going to get on to putting the oil on it. So I'm going to use Danish oil. So that's the next step. Put the oil on there, rub it in and leave it dry overnight. That's the back done. Now to do the front. So I've let it dry for 15 minutes. I'm just wiping off the excess and then I'll leave it overnight and see if it needs another coat in the morning. But possibly it may not. This oil should soak in pretty well. So see you next video.